So tomorrow is going to be a huge day for not only Bitcoin, but a huge day for crypto. I mean, we're talking about the FOMC meeting, and every single word is going to be taken with as much emotion and as much volatility as possible. And in fact, if he even pauses for 5 seconds too long, the market is going to react. So a lot's laying on the shoulders of Jerome Powell as we head into tomorrow. But let's take a look at some of the exciting things that were announced today. Bitcoin strategy acquiring, MicroStrategy acquiring more Bitcoin. Marathon earnings, absolutely insane. And we're going to take a look at some technical analysis and talk about, is the 4-year cycle dead or are we nearing the peak? All that and more in today's video. If you're new here, my name is Alex, provide you crypto daily updates so you're always in the know. That way you can make the most informed decisions in crypto. Enjoy content like that, consider following. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Well, everyone's attention is on the FOMC meeting tomorrow. There have been some really exciting things happening within Bitcoin and crypto as a whole that is leading up to this. Now, obviously, right now, when you take a look at, this is just the hourly chart for Bitcoin, something a little bit more short term if you're looking for maybe some more short term trades. Overall, we've just really stayed sideways, rejected this 19.5 level. And really have been just maintaining the status quo. And I think we're going to maintain the status quo until we figure out what happens tomorrow. And essentially, there's going to be one of two things that happens. Either we see this or we see this. I think there's really not any direction for things to continue sideways. I think there's going to be enough built up pressure for a blow up. And I think in many ways, and I'm more hopeful that we break out above 120K. I hope that Jerome Powell comes out and says, well, there's not going to be a rate cut. Everyone is expecting that, but there will be a rate cut for September, and essentially guarantees that there will be a rate cut that is going to send Bitcoin to the moon. Now, if he comes out and says, well, based on market analysis and based on what we're seeing, we don't know. We can't give any, guidance. We don't know if there's going to be a rate cut. Expect to see a dip down here. And if this level doesn't hold, which it barely held even here, it retested it a couple of times. We've seen prior support at 115K. We are going to be headed down to 112, maybe 114,000 first. If we don't get caught there, we're heading down to 112. Maybe potentially even lower. But these are going to be two major levels of support right here if the news is bad tomorrow. So what does that mean for you? Well, it could be opportunities to buy the dip, because I think the news is going to be temporary because people are going to be looking forward to the coming months, especially as October and November are typically really good. So this could provide the opportunity for people to accumulate during August, accumulate possibly during September, and lead up to a very exciting October and November. And that may be what Michael Saylor is thinking to himself as he buys up another $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Absolutely insane. This is the thing, at one point, for those of us who are familiar enough and have been around the block, no pun intended, there was a point in time when Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin actually caused enough excitement in the market and Bitcoin price to move. Now it almost kind of has a negative effect. Bitcoin is overall primarily down when this was written. And so, it's weird. And even when you look at it right now, it's kind of just sideways. It's not really down, but still down 0.1%. It's just kind of weird because it just simply doesn't have the same effect anymore. And I think that is probably for a reason. There's just so much Bitcoin that's been accumulated. This is kind of just becoming repetitive. And even companies that are following in his footsteps, announcing that they are going to acquire Bitcoin, it's just not simply causing Bitcoin to move. It's not that factor that's causing a shift in price. So I think it's going to be interesting to see as things continue to progress. What is the effect? What is the news? What is going to be the main driver that causes a move in Bitcoin? I think most of us looking at this right now is probably the US government. I mean, when you look at companies that are or countries that are accepting Bitcoin, that's great news. But a lot of eyes are on the United States. As the FOMC meeting, interest rate cuts, that is going to be the momentum shifter, not Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin. By the way, another huge success of the day was Marathon Digital's revenues that they announced. Their EBITDA jumped over 1,000% in a record quarter. Really impressive earnings, honestly, from the likes of Mara and from their overall growth. Their Bitcoin holdings rose 170% over the year or year on year to almost 50,000 Bitcoins, which is a very substantial amount of Bitcoins. And the benefit for a lot of people that may not know, it's actually more cost effective to mine Bitcoin than it is to buy it. So the cost to mine one Bitcoin is less than the cost to buy one Bitcoin. Just think about that for a second. So when you're thinking of companies like Marathon, when it costs them less to mine the Bitcoin than it is to buy it, they're beating Michael Saylor at his own game by multiples over because they have very cheap energy, they have very high efficient miners, they have one of the largest operations in the world. That is essentially a win-win. This is why you see insane numbers like this. This is why they recently raised nearly $1 billion to fund additional Bitcoin purchases and then company operations. So really impressive stuff happening over there at Marathon. I'm lucky enough to know one of the individuals who introduced the CEO of Marathon to Bitmain back in the day. Really impressive stuff that they've accomplished thus far. Now, outside of that, we've kind of seen a bit of a pause in recent SEC dealings. For a period of time, there was a ton of negative when Gary Gensler was there. Now we've got Paul Atkins. We've seen a lot of positivity, but it's somewhat slowed down. We've seen a lot of cases closed or dismissed, but we've not seen a ton of approvals. The approvals, a lot of dismissals, not a ton of approvals. And we're starting to slowly see this trickle in. The SEC weighed in on BlackRock's bid to add staking to Ethereum's ETF, but they also delayed Grayscale's Litecoin proposal. They also approved in-kind creations, redemptions for crypto ETPs. Really great for institutions. But, seeing this delay, there's going to be some Litecoin fans out there. I don't hold a lot of Litecoin. I think there's alternatives to alternative altcoins that have a lot more potential, at least in my opinion. But, these type of delays this happened earlier today on whether to approve the disapproved Grayscale's proposal for Litecoin ETF to October 10th. So this could be good for those who are bullish on Litecoin. If this gets approved, maybe you have the opportunity now leading up to that date, because we're starting to see a lot more positives coming from the likes of Paul Atkins. It's just slowly making its way there. I think it's not going to be all at once. It's just going to be slowly over a period of time. Seeing some of these types of approvals is only going to build up to some of the bigger ones, including the likes of XRP, including other ETFs that want to have Solana, that want to have XRP, that want to have, for example, Litecoin. So I think it's only going to be a slow trickle. I don't think there's just going to be a massive floodgate and everything gets approved. But I think if you're bullish on those assets, if you're bullish on Litecoin, if you're bullish on XRP, you got to look at these and you see the historical record of Paul Atkins, very pro crypto. You're seeing already some of the approvals that have recently happened. You've seen the dismissals. The likelihood of these being approved is very, very high. So yes, you may be waiting a little bit of time, and waiting is not the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world is being late. And because for those that are going to be there when the news drops, the price is already going to be too high to be able to really take advantage of it. So if you're confident in the historical performance of Paul Atkins, if you're confident in XRP, confident in Solana, confident in the likes of Litecoin, these may be the opportunities leading up to October. October is a great month. You get a great ETF announcement. It could be double-digit returns for some people when it comes to stuff like this. So something to be cognizant of leading up. Not everything is going to be instant gratification. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time. But one of the things, big thing for tomorrow, and I want to kind of pivot back to Bitcoin, is looking at this volatility. Connor said this perfectly. This is going to be a word for word reaction. I mean, if there's a pause after a certain sentence and he pauses 5 seconds too long, the market's going to react to it. It's just going to be that kind of a day. And when you take a look at the fear and greed index for BTC and ETH, there's some craziness that is happening right now in the market. There's a lot of people that are talking about Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that. And I think everyone's going to have their different opinions of where things are headed, right? There's going to be, I mean, you even see BTC and ETH trending right now, and you can see what everyone's talking about. I don't really think the fear and greed index is right there right now. But obviously, big news tomorrow. A lot of people talking about what is going to be happening. But the biggest talker of it all is technical analysis. And you look at the charts, they really will tell you everything, which we're going to take a look at not only for tomorrow, but also leading up on more long-term scale. So everyone expects up. What would make more sense is to push down before a potential move higher. Because here's the thing, is everyone has access to the same exact charts. Everyone has this access to the same exact data. It's simply just the interpretation of it. So when everyone is interpreting and everyone's thinking the same thing, or the majority is thinking the same thing, if everyone's thinking we may need to push down before we see a push higher, how do you think the charts are going to react? When you start to see momentum shift to that direction, when everyone's thinking that there is going to be further downside, charts are simply going to do just that. And so when there's a continual consensus, you've been seeing this on and on and on, that there needs to be a push down before a potential move higher. This is not the first time. This is not going to be the last time. I think we are going to be looking at something like this. On top of that, you look at the month of August, historically, a month of correction. So something to consider. But in the end, you always have to look at, I don't agree with Carl on everything, but you have to look at long term. Long term, tomorrow you may see a correction. You may see it corrected for a little bit of time. But long term, Bitcoin is still in a accumulation phase. This is not an instance where this is all-time highs. We're not at all-time highs. We're not in insanity for crypto. There's still opportunities to buy. And obviously it's not going to be only for Bitcoin. This is put out by Peter talking about, this is 2021. For those of us who remember, this was June. This was like November. And then we started to see a slow trend. And then we saw the whole Terra Luna situation collapse. And so maybe we're seeing that again. We're seeing this double top. Essentially, we've broken down. We're starting to see some consolidation. Now, this is more specifically in Bitcoin dominance. But for those of us who remember, this really isn't a Bitcoin dominance chart. This is a Bitcoin drop chart as well. So there was a market rally, but at the same time, for those of us who remember, there was an altcoin rally. But after a double top, we started to see a huge retracement in crypto price. So are we getting close to Bitcoin's top 4-year cycle, right? So when you're taking a look at the bull cycle, now mind you, there's still plenty of room. I mean, when you take a look at this, right? This doesn't end. This ends at $180,000 Bitcoin, right? And it doesn't end until October or about October, November of this year. So, historically, are we following that 4-year cycle? Are we nearing the end of that cycle? And once October, November passes, late December, are we going to start the bear cycle and start our move further down? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns as to where things are. And are we going to head in that direction? Are we following this trend? Is the 4-year cycle still something that exists? Is it non-existent anymore, right? There's all these kinds of questions that people have. And in the end, charts are going to tell you exactly what is happening. And that's why, when you take a look at stuff like this, if you see breakdown of resistance below 112, you're going to obviously go down even further. But even right now, we're seeing a ton of support on the 20-day EMA, exponential moving average. If we break down here to 112, we're right at the 50 EMA. The 50 EMA on top of support, very, very strong support. So just some things to consider from a trade perspective. Now, this is on a daily, so even more so. But even here, rate our RSI very much overbought. So you're starting to see that correction. So this is going to tell you a lot more than your favorite influencer on X is going to any day of the week. Now, last thing I really want to highlight that I think is super, super interesting is stablecoins. We've talked about stablecoins on the channel before, but I think there's so much more adoption. There's so much more opportunity, because people purchase, for so many people that have stablecoins, they don't want to convert it into fiat. We're starting to see a lot more stablecoin cards. We're seeing MetaMask talk about it as well. But just imagine the ability to go on Amazon, to go on Walmart and purchase things with stables, right? Just think about the massive, massive opportunity that exists there. I mean, just imagine Amazon. Now, this is Amazon talking about them and Walmart exploring their own dollar-backed stablecoins that they issue, which obviously is going to give them a lot more opportunity. But just imagine, just in general, the ability to use stablecoins in normal day-to-day transactions. This is just a proof. It's not proof of concept. It's proof of the value that is derived from stablecoins. The fees that they save, the transactionary aspect, the speed. There's so many benefits behind stablecoins. There's going to be obviously some pretty big winners in this. We already know PayPal's PYUSD hit $1 billion market cap in competition with the likes of Circle USDT. Still relatively small, but it is interesting as some of these big retailers turn to adopting stablecoins, what that's going to do to crypto and overall adoption. I think it's going to be pretty huge. But that said, let me know your thoughts. Is there still a 4-year crypto cycle? Are we going to see the peak of that end of this year? Or is the 4-year cycle done and we are moving away from it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Enjoy this video, smash up the like. You enjoy content like this, consider subscribing. Until next time, guys, stay invested.